What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a ScreamInn Media exclusive. I'm sitting here today with International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival director Monte Yazzie. Monte, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing so good. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. This is always an exciting time because we get a really good, really two good festivals here in the Phoenix area. Phoenix Film Festival along the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. So this is the 26th year. Monty, how are you feeling coming off of the 25th anniversary last year as we gear up for the 26th year?
Yeah, it's been a wonderful year, of challenges, of course, with any film festival. You're trying to get these things off the ground, but we've had a wonderful and successful beginning of the year so far. I don't like to say anything positive or negative about the festival until we get to day one, and then I'll start, looking towards the finish line. But things are going pretty good for us, and we got some great movies for you this year.
Right, good. So to kind of kickstart, that brings me into my first real question for you, and that's what are you specifically excited to showcase this year at the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival?
We have such a great lineup. I always tell people I am so very fortunate to have a few really, really good people that are helping me program. So, Danny Marianino does our horror shorts program. Brandon Kitchen does our horror feature competition films. And then Michael Stackpole does everything on our sci-fi side, shorts and features. But we always tell people there's two different ways to kind of engage with the festival. We have our competition films, and then we have our showcase films. And I curate all of the showcase films and work with our programmers to help build their categories. But I tell people a lot that if you get a chance, watch some of these showcase competition films because it might be the only time you get to see it. Hopefully, they get to find distribution, find homes, different places. That's always our hope with those films. And over the last probably 5 or 6 years, we've had great success with many of our horror and sci-fi features finding a home. But on my side, I would be remiss if I didn't tell everybody that I was extremely excited for everybody to watch our opening night film, Obsession, which I think is going to be a really, really fun time for the horror movie audiences. And also for those of you looking for something that might not be so horror or sci-fi, we have an action film called The Furious that has pretty much the most kick-ass trailer I've ever seen on the internet right now. But those two are big highlights for a horror sci-fi side.
Yeah, you're talking about the Furious here. I have a buddy that is just so excited for that movie. He's huge into like those movies like The Raid and The Raid 2 and everything.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's like, and he introduced me to those movies. Like I had no idea what those were. And it seems like this movie kind of a line. Am I kind of right on that? Is the
Yeah.
Furious kind of in that kind of line with the
Oh
action
yeah.
and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Nonstop.
looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's showing. That's showing at the festival then? Yeah.
That's showing at the
So
festival on our Thursday of the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival.
perfect. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's one that I really do want to see. And I'm also curious about Obsession because
Yeah.
this filmmaker, I realized that this is the filmmaker that made Milk and Cereal from a
Yep.
couple years ago,
Hmm.
like the YouTube sensation that just blew up, and it was like, whoa, as to what they were able to do, just like with a found footage and everything. So this filmmaker is really on my radar, and that just excited me even more when I realized, oh my gosh, he wrote and directed this thing. That's so cool.
Yeah, Curry Barker is growing into a really, really accomplished director, and I can't wait for people to watch Obsession. I've been telling people, I'm not giving too much away, but I have a feeling that when this movie is done and we get to end of the year lists, it'll probably be on a lot of end of the year lists. But also, I think there's a performance in this movie that is really going to captivate people. I have a feeling we're going to hear about an actress because of this movie, and after this movie's over, she's going to be in everything. But it's a really, really awesome film, real unique filmmaking style. But it goes places, and I love the twists and the turns, and I like the whole premise for the film.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's definitely one that I'm sure is going to be on a lot of people's radar to come out and see. Because that's opening night, right? If I'm not
That's
mistaken.
Yep, that's our opening night film on April 10th.
Fantastic. So you guys heard it, April 10th. Phoenix, be here. So this year, what are you seeing in horror and sci-fi that kind of really excites you creatively right now? Because every year you get a lot of films. You gotta kind of pick and choose what you showcase, right? What are you seeing this year specifically that kind of really excites you in the creative field?
I love how filmmakers now, especially on the horror and sci-fi side, are really tapping into maybe the last 5 or 6 years that we've had to go through as a society.
Hmm.
Living through a pandemic and getting into new political territory. It's wild times out there, and some people are struggling with it. Some people are having to fight for their rights, unfortunately, and live a little bit harder because of what's happening in the world today. And that's very much reflected in a lot of the films that we have. This idea of culture and identity being a giant narrative tool for films. We have a film playing in our festival. It's called 15. It's basically about a two girls going through a traditional quinceañera, and both of them are trying to understand this idea of their identity and their culture, and one of them turns into a monster. And it's a real cool premise for a film, and I love when culture kind of invades genre, and that's one of those films that I feel like is a big highlight. And on the sci-fi side, our sci-fi feature films that we have for competition, all three of them really touch on this idea of like where the future is going in terms of technology. We have a film that talks a little bit about time travel and what the world might look like in the future, the very near future. We have a film about AI, which is going to kind of, I think, talk a lot more about how we use AI and how we engage with it, and maybe how we are giving it too much of our attention in terms of our feelings and our needs, that we depend on AI for certain things. And then one also about like kind of the political standpoint in the world today, and where we are when it comes to the future and how we have to fight for it. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I've told people many times that genre filmmaking is really a mirror to the world that you're living in, or the world that you might think we might be approaching it. And it's not to I don't think it's unfair to say that many times genre filmmakers are right. We go those directions when it comes to the stories that we're living.
100%, yeah, and I mean, I think that you bring up a really good point about AI. Like, I mean, AI is kind of invading so many different spaces, and I mean, the two that I'm the most familiar with is education and the film world
Yeah.
and everything, and I think that AI invades both of those in cascade number, and it's insane
Yeah.
as to just how many people rely on it now, it's and so I'm curious to see what those films are going to look like. I was wondering, so would you say that brings me to my next question, that brings me to is that kind of a trend that you're seeing this year? Is it technology? Is it AI? Is that kind of like what the trend has been with the horror and the sci-fi stuff?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that idea that technology is not always our friend. And but also I think on the other side as well too, this idea that, identity means so much to people, and how you identify yourself, whether that is through your orientation, your relationship, your person, your culture. Identity is playing a giant theme when it comes to the stories that we're seeing across, I think, all even not just in horror and sci-fi, but across the entire festival.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's outstanding. So that I mean, sounds like that you've got a good amount of a variety of different movies that are going to be
Oh yeah.
showing. So what do you specifically look like, when you're accepting films into these festivals? I feel like this is one that I asked you a couple of years ago, but what do you
Mhm.
think? How has that changed over the last few years? Like, what kind of movies are you looking to showcase? Because I know it also depends on, is there a certain theme that you guys have that you're
Yeah.
going for this year, just as a festival as a whole? Can you
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that?
We always tell people that we don't really use tastemakers in our festival lineup. We don't have one person that kind of is the role of like picking and choosing all the movies. And when it comes to theme, a lot of times that theme finds us. We don't really make an emphasis for trying to put emphasis on a certain narrative theme or an idea. But we end up seeing it, every year. And even like I would say like 5 years ago, we had this resurgence of like, people using zombies or vampires or different things to tell stories that were real connected to the world that we're living in. I feel like that's kind of where we see that idea of reflection when it comes to genre filmmaking, and where we're at when it comes to storytelling. But yeah, when we have the films that are being brought into us, we're always looking for just the best example. And unfortunately, sometimes we have some films that are kind of the same theme. Maybe they're all dealing with this idea of AI, and we have to pick one. We're going to be the best representation of that, and sometimes that's a really hard thing. I know our programmers will reach out to me and they'll say, "Hey, can you watch like these two movies and give me an idea or give me some feedback on what you think? Because I have one that I maybe like to use more than the other one." And it's real community driven. But I trust the programmers that we have in our horror sci-fi department. I always tell people Danny, Brandon, and Michael have all been here longer than I have. So I'm the new kid in the block, but so they've been here from day one, and that's pretty unheard of when you think about as long as of a festival as we've had now to have our programmers that are still doing the job. And these guys, they spend a lot of time with it. They spend a lot of hours trying to curate the best. Danny likes to call it a playlist, almost like making the best mixtape for his short films.
Yeah.
And Brandon talks about it in terms of like just trying to find great examples of films that he thinks are doing something really unique. So but yeah, I think the themes find us. And from the standpoint of understanding what we're choosing, we're always just looking for the best representation in those categories.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I'm definitely because I attended the shorts block a couple years ago. I definitely haven't, as even someone who's involved with the Phoenix Critics Group and everything. I feel like that I haven't had a chance yet, like since my time out here, to really be involved. And I definitely plan on attending multiple days this year for the festival. Like I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the features, a lot of the shorts, and all that stuff. And hopefully in the midst of it, getting to meet some filmmakers and everything like that too. So,
Yeah.
that'll be really, really cool.
That's one of my favorite parts about the film festival is the idea that many of these filmmakers are coming with their movies. So if you have
Yeah.
questions about a movie right after you watch it, they're probably up there talking about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's super exciting. This is actually one for because ScreamInn Media has a lot of aspiring filmmakers that come to our
Yeah.
site and our YouTube channel and everything. So I got to ask, what are some of the common mistakes that you see when people are submitting to the
Mhm.
festival? I feel like that this is one that not a lot of people get any insight on. So, what do
Yeah.
you see as maybe common mistakes that filmmakers make when they're submitting these movies?
Yeah, I go back to that idea that I think, I've been doing filmmaking now for about, I don't know, almost 15, 20 years now. And to see the advances in technology that are happening, I remember the first camera I ever rented to do a short film. We had to wait like 2 weeks before it was available, and then we had to find all of the equipment to go with it. It wasn't like it was a all-in-one package. You had to like, wait to get everything together. And it was a process to film things on it. And nowadays, though, people have their cell phones, and I tell people some of the best examples of filmmaking that we have are people who just have their cell phone. So I go back to the idea that it's all in the story. It's all in the time that you take to write your story, to edit your story. I have had on occasion some people come to me and say, "Hey, Monty, I have this great story for you, and I'm ready to like have you read it. We want to get some pointers and stuff like that." And I'll say, "Oh," I said, "What edit are we on?" And they'll say, "Oh, I haven't even done a rewrite. This is the first draft." And I'm like, "Man, if you're working on your first draft, you haven't let anybody else see it." I said, "Like, you gotta. It's collaborative. It's the collaborative process." And I know that sometimes it's hard to let other people look at your work, but in everything I've ever done, from the idea of like making a movie, I have only found success when I work with other people. And if I'm open to criticism and I'm open to structural guidance, I always take it. And you got to have tough skin sometimes. Sometimes people aren't so kind to you, but find those people that are going to be honest with you and they want what's best for you. And I know it's sometimes hard to find those people, but if you can find them and they can help you create a better story or give you an idea. Edit, 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 edit. And when you think you're done editing, edit some more, because you can always make a movie tighter. You can always make it flow a little bit better just by taking time in your editing process. And then I always tell filmmakers as well too, next best thing is, prepare for everything, even the things that you don't know yet. Like a really good example of pre-production is a pre-production that takes, 10 times as long as the shoot dates. So if you're shooting for 5 days, but you have pre-produced for 25 days or 50 days, you're going to get all of those things that could go wrong right before you even get out there. And even if you don't, you've worked enough with your team and your crew to be able to workshop through those things, or to um, troubleshoot through some of those disasters that happen on set. I have never made a filmmaker who purposefully tried to make a bad film. Every filmmaker I've ever met has had great intentions of the movies that they made, and I know in instances with short films I've done that I'll probably never show people, that I had all the best intention in the world and something went bad and we just didn't plan for it. We didn't. Monty was a young filmmaker at one point in time and made a lot of mistakes. And I do tell
Yeah.
people the idea of the editing came from a real personal piece where I thought my writing was superior and I was a cocky young filmmaker, and went in front of a group of people who were looking at my movie and no one got it, and I didn't understand it, and it was a real wide awakening to the idea of what filmmaking could be.
100%, yeah, and, as someone who has filmmaking experience and background and everything myself, it really is like, your movie takes on its own life form when it's
Yeah.
shown to an audience of people. It's like, when I attended even the shorts block at this festival, like, a couple years ago, just watching people react to the movies and everything is always the most fun, and especially when it's your own movie. I can only imagine what these filmmakers are experiencing on the inside when they're showing their movie to an audience of people. So it's really, really cool that this festival does have a lot of really innovative ideas for what's currently going on. And I'm sure they're going to get a lot of good reactions this year for sure.
Yeah. Or partners. Or
Um,
partners. I tell people that too, or partners, finding new collaborators. That's a great opportunity as well too.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think that you hit it right on the head. It's that filmmaking is a collaborative effort. There's one of the cinematographers I've worked with in the past. He says it all the time on a film set, and it's that it takes a village to to
Yeah.
get it done. And he can't emphasize that enough. And I've used that too. It's like, it's not a single man job. Now, a person can do it for sure. A solo person could do it, but it's 10 times harder, 20 times harder to get it done.
Yeah.
So, and like you
Hmm.
said, the more time that you spend in pre-production, I hate pre-production, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it usually is, yeah. Like, I'm happy when it's done because I know that I've planned for everything, and
Hmm.
I know that if you have any experience doing that, like I'm sure you do,
Yeah.
it just it makes everything a lot easier once that's all taken care of.
Yeah.
What kind of experiences do you want the audiences to walk away with this year from the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival?
We live by our motto. We want you to find your favorite movie. And I always tell people that when we go to the film festival, I love it when we have folks who come back and say, "Hey, I still think about that movie that you played a few years ago. I still think about that short film that came up here. That movie inspired me to be a filmmaker." And we're really trying hard to make a community of film fans, a community of cinephiles, filmmakers. Every person who engages in film in a very special way, I call the movie theater my church. So for me, being able to be around film people is really a blessing, one, but also a real comfort. When I'm in a theater, when I'm surrounded by people who are watching a movie with me, it feels like we're all connected in a really unique way. And that's really it. We're just trying to build a community and trying to foster this idea that everybody's accepted, every movie taste is accepted at the film festival. There, even if you have bad taste, you're still accepted at the film festival. I say that because sometimes I'm the one that has bad taste. But it is a community, and as long as you have a love for film and you're kind to people, we want you there. We want you there to engage and find your new favorite people, your new film fans, your new film friends, and maybe hopefully your new favorite movie.
100%. Yeah, I have always loved that motto for the Phoenix and International Horror Sci-Fi Film Festivals as a whole. The find your favorite movie is, or find your new favorite movie is just awesome because it's like, yeah, I mean, people could walk away from it and be like, wow, that is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah,
And but as long as it engages in the conversation, I know that that's a huge piece of what we do within the Phoenix Critic Circle is, is making sure that we're carrying the conversation forward. And I think that these
yeah.
festivals really allows that, especially because you guys are showing really good movies this year. I mean, like you said, you've named a few of them here, and then they've got the shorts block as well, which is I'm sure just going to add to that experience a lot.
Yeah.
So okay, couple more questions here. Do you remember the first film that really just scared or inspired you?
Oh yeah. I grew up watching horror films a lot younger than I probably should have watched them. But I remember some older cousins of mine talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the way they talked about it, they made it sound like it was a real movie, like it was just like, oh, it was just real film, right? And a young, impressionable, probably 7 or 8 year old who found a VHS copy and decided to put it on by themselves. And you get the narrator at the beginning talking about the event, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all that kind of stuff, and the graininess of the movie. Probably watched a million times, so it was extra grainy on VHS. It just felt real to me in a real way, and I'll never forget that experience. I tell people still to this day that that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the greatest horror film ever made. It might not be the best horror film ever made, but it's the greatest horror film ever made because it's an independent filmmaker. It's an independent filmmaker who just got together and wanted to do something with a group of other passionate filmmakers. And what came out still stands the test of time. There's still people who are making movies inspired by that. But that was probably the first time I remember like really being scared of something. And I guess that's maybe unfair to say because I was so young,
Hmm.
but yeah, I definitely watched that movie a lot younger than I should have. But teenage Monty really was affected by Candyman because it felt like some of the neighborhoods I grew up in as well too, and
Oh yeah.
I could really connect with the idea of like this idea of like communal living where communities were engaged by stories of what happened in there. And I grew up in a community that was kind of ravaged by gang violence as well too. So in that community growing up there, you had stories of awful things that people were doing, and you didn't know who that person was. You might have only known them by their street name, or you might have only known them by their gang affiliation. And there
Mhm.
isn't much difference than a gang name than somebody from a gang than somebody being known as like the Candyman. And that
Yeah.
movie always like freaked me out too. Even now to this, I still think to this day, I still like remember. Well, if I'm ever in a parking garage, I can still see Candyman standing at the end of the parking garage, except instead
Oh
of
yeah.
saying Helen's name, he's saying Monty's name, and it still scares me.
So then what did you think of the 2022 Candyman?
Yeah,
Did you like that one?
I
Did
did.
you?
I
Like,
I real I
yeah.
really did. I know a lot of people didn't. I think some people thought that they were. I feel like the idea of that was a lot of people were criticizing it for being a little bit too much a commentary on racism, a
Uh-huh.
commentary on maybe more social commentary. But I always took it that way. Even from the
Yeah.
first Candyman, I took those
Yeah.
ideas as like, oh, this is a story about culture. This is a story about somebody coming in and stealing a story from a community. I always took it like that as well too, from from the first film I watched. So to have this new film that was more of an idea that Candyman is predated and brought about because of the violence that's happening to a community, um, it just stuck with me. I think even more. I still really watch the new Candyman quite often, and I mean, spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but I love the last like 10 minutes of that movie. I think are just so
Mhm.
strong and haunting. I don't know. I still I walked away from that movie with a big smile on my face after I watched it because I was that guy that was sitting in the audience like there is no way that I'm going to like this movie. It's it's in my handshake 5. I tell people that all the time. Candyman always comes
Yeah.
up in my handshake 5, and it was a pivotal film for me.
Yeah. No, that and I totally can relate. Like anytime I walk through a parking garage, I do agree. can see Candyman standing at the end. But another scene that also does it has to do with the parking garage. Now I'm a big Scream 4 fan, and that
Oh
parking
yeah.
garage scene in Scream
Hmm.
4 with Sydney's publicist, I thought what
Yeah.
played by Alison Brie also, which is funny to
Hmm.
see her so young, playing, and because she was just in that movie together this past year with her husband now. And I mean, just to see her in that parking garage, that scene always had a deep effect on me because I saw that when I was like a freshman in high school, and just
Yeah.
seeing her body get tossed from the parking garage or from like the top of the hospital onto that
Yeah.
car. It's just man. But yeah, Scream 4, I feel like is personally underrated. I like
Oh
Scream
yeah.
4 a lot, but I
You
know that
know,
it's not for everyone. So
it's Wes Craven again
yeah.
being ahead of his time, because that film is so much about where we are now. With
Hmm.
like with this culture of wanting to be everywhere all the time. Having an audience,
Yeah.
having likes and dislikes and all that.
Yeah.
Craven was amazing. He's so amazing.
Correct. Yeah. And my buddy would say Halloween Resurrection was also ahead of its time, but I'm like, we don't talk about that movie. So, because you can
Yeah,
argue that too, right? Like that was
yeah,
2002, and that is
yeah.
kind of like now today's day and age. But yeah, we don't talk about Halloween Resurrection. So,
Yes, yes. We don't talk about that one. That's funny.
but okay, the last question here is if you could describe this year's festival in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a hard question. Let me think about this for a second. In one
Yeah.
word or
Yeah.
phrase, the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, how would I describe it? Um,
I had to keep you on your toes at the end here
yeah,
for a harder one. So,
yeah. Um, okay, all right. I can do this. I feel like when I was programming everything this year, when we were working on programming and looking at, I kept using the word unique, because it's one of the few years where we just don't have a lot of overlapping themes. We have films that are touching on some of the same themes, but they're in different style of films. We have a movie called Flush where a guy gets his head caught in the toilet bowl, and the entire movie takes place from inside the toilet bowl. We have a movie about meta horror, about somebody trying to write a continuation to a sequel, and how that turns into something that they've always wanted to do, but now they're being stalked by somebody, and that's a whole new unique feature. And then we have Quinceañera, 15, which is a film about culture and identity. Then we have a movie called Marama, which is a gothic New Zealand horror tale. Um, yeah, we have a lot of unique films this year, and I feel like that probably is the best way to say it, because I haven't been able to say that some other years, but definitely this year we have a really unique lineup of movies this year with a whole lot of films. I feel like a lot of folks are going to be like, well, I like that one, and I like that one, and I like that one, but they're not all the same. They're all different. And for me,
yeah.
that's a huge success for me, because sometimes we are only afforded what movies might be available at the time. So there have been years where I'm like, oh man, I got three zombie films, I got two vampire films, I got two movies that are slashers, and now what am I gonna do? So,
Yeah.
but this year we don't have that. We don't have a lot of the crossover. We have a lot of really unique films.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, you guys heard it here first. Unique films. Find your new favorite movie this year at the Phoenix Film Festival and the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. There are two festivals that collide hand in hand with one another. Do the horror films play at nighttime or do they play during the day? Does it just kind of depend on the lineup? I know all the information's on your
Yeah.
website, but I just want to make sure that the audience knows where to go if they're looking at, securing tickets for
Mhm.
certain blocks.
Yeah, our films for horror sci-fi, our showcase films usually play in the evening, so you can find us anytime after 5 or 6 o'clock most evenings. But our competition films play throughout the day, so they'll be playing starting early in the morning. They get a lot more screenings than some of the other films do, because we want to give the audience that's coming to the festival a lot more time to engage with those movies since they are in competition. But yeah, for pretty much everything horror sci-fi, we're starting everything after 6 o'clock in the evening. Usually got an opportunity to watch two showcase films in the evening, so it's a great time to watch a double feature. It's a great time to meet up with some friends and watch some scary movies. But can find everything for horror sci-fi on horrorsci-fi.com, and everything for ticketing for all of the festival, Phoenix and International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival, at phoenixfilmfestival.com. And we start with our opening night on April 9th with Power Ballad as our opening night film for the entire festival. And we go all the way to the 19th. So 11 fun days of movie madness.
I will say this is easily one of the longest festivals I feel like
Yeah.
that I've seen personally. Like, I mean, I that's 9 whole nights of movies essentially,
Yeah.
10 really. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it really is a long festival, but it's awesome because it's like you get it allows you to showcase more, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the idea is that you want to show as much as you can, right? But
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
there has to be a cutoff at some point. But I think that yeah, it's awesome because like even like TIFF is what, like a weekend or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
so yeah, it's awesome that Phoenix Film Festival and the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival has the opportunity for 10 whole nights really of movies. So outstanding. Well, Monty, thank you so much for sitting here and speaking with ScreamInn Media. We love having you every single year and chatting with you. Can't wait to be back next year. And yeah, any last words you want to give the audience before we let you go?
Well, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. And if you see me at the festival, come over and tell me your handshake five.
There it is, guys. Thanks, Monty. I appreciate it.